Today's episode is going to be on self-sabotage.
Like the way I woke up today with my allergies.
Isn't it interesting how some days you can wake up and feel so diametrically different than the day before?
I swear, I went to bed yesterday so excited and nice and calm, and I woke up and I felt like I got hit by a bus, like literally. And then I was like, duh, today's not going to be the good day. I started to have that talk within myself.
How do you turn around a bad day? Like, what do you think some of things
I start to
do?
look at things that I'm grateful for.
Okay.
Yeah, and the number one thing I tell myself is, hey, at least I'm healthy.
Gratitude is a good antidote to shitty days.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
It
gratitude
helps.
is a good antidote to a shitty life. Like, just making yourself realize what you should be grateful for. We forget
It's
quite
true.
often.
We do forget, and we take things
Yeah.
for granted, and it's important to bring it back in when things aren't going well, because the thing about life, and we notice this, is it ebbs and flows. You're going to have periods where things seem to go easy, and then you're going to feel like you've been hit by a truck and all this stuff starts to go wrong all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it's how do we bring ourselves back to good?
We recycle the gratitude thoughts, just like your shirt. Let me see what your shirt says.
I don't even know what it says.
It says, what? You don't recycle?
I definitely recycle. Although I'm always curious what happens after I recycle, like where it goes. I think about what happens
They break
beyond.
it down in some big yard, and then they just put it underground and disintegrates.
But does it
into
actually
soil.
go back? Assumingly it does.
Your
It means
face.
that we're resourcing things.
Yeah, that's great.
Them. Yeah,
I think we need to resource some other stuff.
I think so too. Okay, tell me your shirt.
Oh, it was very appropriate for today.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to come, or I don't want to be here. Or I don't
Oh
wanna
my
come.
gosh, that is so many people's motto. Don't
Yeah.
want to go to work. Don't want to do this. I mean, you realize when you become an adult, there is so much responsibility
Yeah,
with
adulting
life.
is hard.
And you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And it's so funny because I think it's really important to teach kids responsibility, because if you don't, it's like for the stuff later when they're adults, they're not
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
gotta
most of
teach
us
them
are
to
not
do
taught
stuff
how to
early.
be an adult, definitely. I just came back from a trip. I went to Amsterdam, and then one of my really good friends is going to Armenia, and I really have to be an adult, and I can't go because I have bills to pay. And she keeps telling me, like, it's okay, your bills can be paid later. And I'm just like, no, they can't. No, they can't.
Yeah.
I have to be an adult. I have to really, be grateful that I was able to go to Amsterdam. The Netherlands is amazing, even though I want to go back to Armenia. I can't go. I'm going to miss out, but it's okay. And I can't start self-sabotaging, my life and my days, just because I can't go and I have to be an adult. I start looking at all the things that I'm grateful for and all the experiences I have had. That kind of helps me go forward with things.
Well, so that is interesting. You know not to self-sabotage, but I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there that don't know
Yeah.
how to not self-sabotage and don't even know when they're doing it.
Yeah, especially in relationships.
Yes.
When they start sabotaging the relationship when it's going good, because they're so used to it going bad.
Well, we need to unpack that for a second. So what is self-sabotage?
It's when you start to destroy the good in your life unconsciously or subconsciously.
Do you think
actually.
sometimes people do it consciously though, or is it always subconscious?
I think it's always subconscious. I don't think anybody, no, that's a good question, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it's always subconscious. In my patients, I've always seen it be subconscious, because nobody wants to live a bad life, but because they're not used to living a good life or having a good relationship or having good things happen, that they do things to cause chaos in their life to show, well, life isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm. So
What do you think?
so it's interesting. I had to do a little research on it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it had to do with familiarity for sure.
Yeah.
But control came up, which I found interesting. So it
Oh.
says, it feels better to control your own failure rather than face the possibility of it blindsiding you and taking you by surprise. So control freaks potentially self-sabotage because it's a way to have agency over that failure.
That's so crazy. It's like people who are in relationships that it's going fine, and they are so insecure that they start to pick apart and make things up in their mind as to what is wrong in the relationship or what You know what I mean? Because they're not used to it. So they're
it says in
controlling
this-
it without
yes.
even knowing it.
Even if you're steering the ship and it's going down in flames, at least you're steering the ship.
Oh my God.
That's sort of deep.
Say that again.
So, okay, it's basically like if you're aboard the
Yeah.
Titanic, you're in charge.
Even
You're
though
the
you're
one
heading towards
driving. You're going towards that iceberg, but you're the one driving that into the...
Oof. You know, I found that most successful people have higher levels of self-sabotage.
How do they become successful if they self-sabotage?
Self-esteem.
They gain it over time?
Yeah, I mean, they became successful by having control over so many things in their life, and, you know, but they tend to self-sabotage often without even knowing it, with, you know, because of their self-esteem at times.
So I find it interesting. A lot of people I work with, very successful in career, but not successful in relationships.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the opposite. Have really good relationships, but struggle in career.
Yeah.
So what I find in all this is it's really hard to have both and have it all.
We could, though.
You can. It's just
could.
not easy per se.
We're also not the same person as we are in a relationship than we are at work. You know, I'm not a therapist in my relationship, or if I was in a relationship, I wouldn't be a therapist. That would be really weird.
How many people do you think we are in our lives? Because we all play different roles, right? So we say one person
Yeah.
on the job, one person with our family, one person with our friends, one person alone.
Depends on how many masks you want to wear. When I work with actors and actresses, like people who are in theater, you've seen it. I always ask them, when do you take your mask off?
What do they say?
Most of the time they sleep with it, basically. They never take it off, not even for themselves. So they're constantly playing a role in their life. And it's just sad because you kind of get lost in all these different roles you play and masks you wear, and you forget who you are.
It
That's when
actually brings
depression
up
hits.
something for me in the work that I do with people, right? So and you know this, and I'm trying to remember who was the one which shrink coined the term on this, but it's the false self versus the real self, right? So if you're an actor and you're always having to wear that mask and be the false self, we'll say, and you never take that off, then you never get to uncover who the real self is.
Yeah.
And so by the time they come into our office, they don't even know who they are.
They're wearing another mask in our office. So it's our job to help them feel safe enough to take off that mask and look at their raw self, their raw emotions.
Yep.
Which is terrifying. Then they put the mask back on and they go out into the world. But we all do it. It just depends on how many roles you want to play in your life.
I think we all do it every day when people say, "How are you?" And it's like most people don't say, "I'm doing super shitty." If that's true.
I literally had the most authentic exchange with the postal worker when I was walking up here today. We were walking, both of us had our head down, and she said, "How are you, darling?" I said, "I'm okay." She said, "Well, I hope you have a good day, a better day." And I said, "I hope you have a blessed day too." And I was like, "How are you?" And she was like, "I'm okay." That was like the most authentic exchange I've probably ever had in my life with another person. And I feel like we have it more so with strangers than we have with people who we know.
Well, because there's no expectations with strangers in some ways.
Yeah.
And also having that exchange is so honest.
It really was.
It's so, and you know what? When you're honest, it allows people to be seen.
To feel you.
You actually feel like, oh, somebody sees me.
Yeah.
That's nice. And no judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to stop judging ourselves. That's also another part of self-sabotage. You know, we're so judgmental of ourselves. You know, we keep bashing ourselves down. Like, if I ask you, tell me your weaknesses, you'd be able to list a ton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But if I ask you, tell me some of your strengths, you'd be able to list a few.
I'm actually at the point I can give you a pretty good list on both, but it took
But
a
you've
lot of
worked
therapy.
on yourself.
It's a lot of therapy, right?
Yeah.
And that self-love piece, I remember this. This is so funny. I was in my therapist's office and I was like, I don't think my parents taught me self-esteem or self-love. And the therapist started laughing. And I was like super serious in this moment. I'm like, I don't know if I like learned that, and I'm really struggling. And she's like, I don't think parents can teach you that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can teach you that, because it's self-love and self-esteem.
Yeah.
And it was this aha moment where I was like, oh yeah, like only I can do that for myself.
But we learn how to self-sabotage. You know,
Only
nobody
you can do that
teaches
for
you.
yourself too, right?
Yeah, so we've learned how to self-sabotage good things in our life, because at times we are scared to succeed. We're afraid of good things being taken away from us. So if we could control it and sabotage it ourselves, at least we can prove to ourselves that it didn't work out. I wasn't expecting it to work out anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting concept to really think about, and I think there's so much darkness within it, and there's so much depth within sabotaging yourself that, you know, of course through therapy we can learn how to kind of walk ourselves out of it. But it's sad, because I think as humans it's important for us to really be able to give ourselves a chance in living a happy life regardless of what has happened to us, and treat ourselves the way we want other people to treat us. If you don't want people to treat you like shit, don't treat yourself like shit.
It's true. And also self-sabotage, another piece that came up for that was imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Which is feeling like you're not who you proclaim to be.
Like you're a fraud.
You're a fraud. That's a piece of that too.
Wow. You know, it's interesting. I think we all kind of talked about that when we were becoming therapists.
Yeah, everybody who goes into a high-powered career, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people who go into high-powered careers and then gain success struggle with this imposter syndrome. Like, am I as good as everyone else thinks I am?
Mm-hmm. You're as good as you think you are.
Well, we know that now.
Yeah, it's all
But
in
did
our
we know that
thoughts.
early on?
We didn't. Remember when we were in practicum? I remember telling my supervisor, who am I, this little twerp in practicum, to be helping this person who has like a severe mental disorder? And she said, you're future Dr. Irene. So act like it. I was like, act like it? It's like fake it till you make it kind of thing. But then we forget, who am I? I'm in my doctorate program. I have all this education. I have all this training. And I authentically want to help people. So who are you? That's who you are. You know, until like years pass by, and then we kind of develop into like, okay, well, I'm a therapist. I know what I'm talking about. This is my perspective, you know, and so forth. But did you ever feel like that?
Not really, but I did feel some insecurity in my experience level. I didn't have imposter syndrome as much. I had more insecurity in like, oh, I haven't done this enough. And it's in the truth of doing anything. It's like in that book, Outliers, it's the 10,000 hour rule. You're not going to get good at anything until you put those hours in, and then you become an expert on something. And there's no shortcuts to getting there.
Nope.
And that will mitigate the insecurity. It's just by doing it. That's why I say to people, like, if you're curious and trying something on for size, you want to go explore a different career, or you want to go find a different passion project, just go do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Like, don't even worry about the
happen
outcome.
is if you might fail. Who cares? And if you failed, you learn something out of it.
And at a minimum, it'll be a great adventure. And you can say, like, I tried this. But there's automatic failure by not doing anything.
Yeah.
So you might as well just go for it. And, you know, and that's just, it's an adventure. Look at it like that. Take the pressure off yourself a little bit.
What do they say? The biggest regrets people have when they're on their deathbed is the things they didn't do.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And so we might want to do something, but we feel like we're not good enough. We don't have enough experience. We're not this, we're not that. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough support. That's all self-sabotage. And then you rationalize as to why you are not doing what you actually want to do. But the older we get, at least I can speak for myself, the older I get, the more risks I want to take.
I feel like that too in some regards. And also it's like, you realize it's like a calculated risk of like, okay, you can see things a little bit clearly, more clearly as you age, and you get more, I want to say, like, life under your belt. You know, you get a little bit more perspective on things. So that shifts. But I do want to bring the self-sabotage stuff back to relationships, because we're talking a lot about career. And I think that the area this may show up the most in for people is in romantic relationships, in friendships, in any of those intimate relationships that we have in our life. How many people are sabotaging it because under that is fear of intimacy, trust issues,
abandonment,
perceived abandonment,
yeah,
all that stuff sort of coming up to the surface for people.
Yeah, it's always when people are in a good relationship, they start to doubt it. We don't doubt a bad relationship as much as we doubt a good relationship.
It's true.
It's almost like we're not used to good things happening, you know? And so if you're in a good relationship, let yourself take in the good is what I tell my patients. You know, just let yourself take in the good. If you're having a good day, let yourself take in that good day. If you're spending time with the guy you really like, let yourself enjoy it. You know, don't just get in your head and just start sabotaging it, and then he leaves and you're just like, oh, well, I wish I could spend more time with him. Well, you were with him for like 8 hours, you know? So give yourself permission to have a good relationship. Not until the bad presents itself, you don't have to deal with it. We always think of what if, and I always tell my patients, what if?
Mm-hmm.
What if it goes bad? What if it doesn't?
It really is reminding people to stay in the here and now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work I do with people is letting in the good. Because it's so easy to sit there and complain about all the bad, right? We're really good at that. It's super easy to access those emotions. But for a lot of people, it's really hard to bring in gratitude, to bring in positivity, to bring in self-esteem, self-worth, security, trust, intimacy, those things, right?
Yeah.
Allowing those things into your circle.
It's just scary. Humans are just scared creatures. We're just scared. We don't want to be hurt. You know, we get hurt more often than not. And when we get hurt, it really affects our perception on life, and we start to overgeneralize, and that's when we get anxiety, then we fall into depression, and then we start to develop like these personality things, and then it could be a downward spiral. But one thing, if I could just leave our listeners with, is if you can practice gratitude as much as you possibly can. Remind yourself of all the things that you have. And I know it sounds so cheesy, right? Remind yourself. It's not positive thinking. This has nothing to do with positive thinking. It has to do with putting yourself back into reality. I woke up today, I feel like shit. But thank God I'm healthy, because I know my body's going to fight off this annoying allergy that I have to whatever it is. Okay, move forward. Life still moves forward. What can I eat today to make myself feel better? Oh, thank God I have the money to buy it, you know? I'm going to go see Dr. Elizabeth today. We're going to record a podcast. I have my voice to record a podcast. I could have been sick, not had a voice. Today would have been ruined. You know what I mean? So I constantly remind myself, and I pray, and I'm a very, big believer in God, and I always thank God. Thank you, God, for giving me today. Thank you. Just help me be good to myself so I can move forward. That's what helps me.
Mm-hmm. And so also with gratitude, I want to add one thing to that, is letting in goodness, letting in those hard and uncomfortable good emotions.
Yeah.
Right. And it does mean something when you can do that. There's some growth in that, and some emotional intelligence that starts to kick in.
Yep.
And it'll add to your life. It doesn't mean that the bad won't be there, but it's taking the good with the bad.
And we're going to take the good today and go with it, because the weather is so beautiful, even though it's like 115 degrees outside. But hey.
And hey, all those out there that maybe after listening to this, you're thinking, maybe I'm a self-saboteur. Take inventory of that. Think about the ways in your life that you're showing up for yourself, maybe some of the ways in your life that you're not, and how that is impacting you, whether it's through career, relationships. What aren't you giving yourself?
Give yourself permission to live.
And to fail.
And stop worrying about things that haven't presented themselves to you.
And don't take control of every situation, because it's all an illusion anyways.
Yeah, right. Oh my God.
All right. Till next time.